Hi, everyone. I'm extremely honored and super happy to be here today with you all. Actually, for the last 3 years, I have been following and participating in the UX DX events, and they always have been super informative. So I'm super happy to be facilitating this nice discussion around the scaling design today with you all. So starting from yesterday, you have been able to view the great talks of Patricia, Haley, Guillermo, and Miriam. I hope many of you have done that, and I would like to encourage, if you have any questions or comments, please drop them into the Slack. I would love your activity. So we have collected all of the speakers today to talk together about design ops and try to figure out how they scale design at their organizations today. How do they orchestrate and optimize people around that? How do they work with the processes? How do they craft their work in order to amplify the design's value and impact the scale of the design at the organization? So I still want to encourage everyone to drop any question, maybe any challenge that you have around scaling design in your org today. Drop that into the Slack, and maybe our panelists will be able to give you some useful tips. I think that would be really, really cool. So what's exciting today that we not only have the representative of the design departments like Miriam, Haley, Patricia, but we also have Guillaume to represent the engineering and DevOps background in this conversation. So it's supposed to be really exciting. Right, let's dive into the topic a little bit. And during the last couple of years in our industry, I believe that the term design ops or design operations have gained this crazy popularity and interest among people. However, I think between different professionals, between different organizations, it seems that the design operations or design ops have been getting different understanding or different feeling. So to kick this panel off, I would like to throw this question at our panelists and ask them the following. So how is your organization today understanding the design operation? How is it defined, actually? And I know, Guillermo, we had an interesting conversation with you previously. Curious, how does Accenture see and define the design operation? What does it actually mean? Is it a process, a methodology, anything else?
Well, I would say, of course, it depends who you ask in Accenture. We are 500,000 people at the end, so each one has their own opinion. There is not a formal definition that we have for design ops, but in my view, well, I'm going to mention something that maybe some people don't like, or maybe some people laugh at that, or even some of them, they might like it. I'm the head of DevOps department, the capability in Accenture the Netherlands. And I hate the term DevOps. I don't like it at all. I think it leads to misconception of what it really means. DevOps in general is not only putting developers and operational guys together, it's changing the philosophy on how we work and the delivery and so on. Same with design ops. I have the feeling that it's a buzzword. It's becoming a buzzword that, well, at the end, you want to brand it with some area, some type of something ending with ops because it became popular, and that's all. For me, the philosophy behind of design ops, or call it whatever, UX, DX, or call it anything, it's the idea of working together, of collaborating, working together, what we sometimes consider the product team. But the product team itself, by themselves, cannot do that much. They need a change in the organization, in the approach, how they afford things, how they move things forward. So for me, that's the thing. At the end, it's a way of working. It's a modern way of working that focuses on giving the customer what they want, and they give it as soon as possible. So there is an early detection on the new experiences, and early delivery of the new experiences in a continuous manner. So for me, that's what will be called design ops.
For sure, that makes a lot of sense to me, actually. Thanks for that perspective, Yama. Haley, curious about your answer on that. As a UX manager, I know you have lots of experience at Shopify, but also before that at some other exciting companies. How would you define design operation?
I think one thing that's important for defining design ops is first to define design. So my perspective on design is that it isn't just about craft, it's actually about the intent behind our outcomes. And I think that the ops part has to do with how do we operationalize that? How do we scale intent? And that's intent is something that anyone can have on a team. It's not just about designers. So, enabling teams to have a human-centered process, to embrace a culture of that intentional thinking is where I think design ops really thrives. So for me, I would start always when talking about design ops with culture, and that for us at Shopify means the rituals that teams have together. It means that the people that we invest in and hire and grow. It means the symbols in the culture, the things that represent teams and the organization as a whole. And it also includes, again, just different ways of working and the values that we stand for. So those are some things that we think about when we talk about design ops.
Love that. So we talked about the workflow. We talked right now about the culture, the people. I actually truly agree with that. I think this is what design ops would be really meaning to me as well. And of course, like when we are talking about maybe changing the culture slightly, or working to enable the people, or creating new rituals, I guess an interesting question would be here to answer as next one. It would be talking about some patterns or processes that your organizations, or maybe you have helped your organization to implement in order to scale the impact of the design practices. Patricia, I know that you talked about, you gave actually a nice timeline in a timely manner in your presentation about how was the design growing and design system implementation growing at Brainly. Would you mind giving us some, highlighting some interesting patterns and processes that Brainly have implemented in order to make design bigger or scale it as practice?
So first of all, I think design system as a thing that allows not only designers work better and faster, but also developers, and also in our case other departments, so community managers that are doing designs for social media, and I don't know, HR who is doing some presentation for new joiners, or every single member of Brainly that is designing something. So I think design system was a key factor that improved quality of the design and design awareness across Brainly, inside Brainly. But when it comes to processes and as Hayley mentioned, the culture and how we, for example, making sure that we are heading in the same direction. We introduced the cards with design principles, like first of all design principles, then the cards that allow us to play a little with this. So I think this is something interesting. Recently, we hired a solutions architect to our team. Solutions architect meaning UI engineer who is working with us and giving developers perspective on the side. Of course, we're working with developers from product teams, but right now we have also our core member developers. So yeah, I think that's it. Maybe I will expand it later.
It is exciting. I have questions later in my list about the cards that you've been describing in your talk. By the way, everyone who is interested, really advise to go and watch Patricia's talk around that process. I think that was fascinating. Miriam, so just now Patricia mentioned, involving different functions into kind of like the design process. In your talk, you have been sharing about the importance of involvement of the engineering teams as well into the user validation and the problem validation sessions. Could you share some details on like how do you bring those people in and how does that help you in your design?
Sure. So as I mentioned in the talk, in my talk, and I think also Guillermo mentioned that a bit, our approach is a bit more holistic, in the sense that, yeah, we're trying to kind of help designers and developers educate each other on their fields. So even if you are just a developer, we do want you to sit in sessions with designers, and the designers walk the developers through their ideas and vice versa, so that they both get the understanding of the technical aspect and the creative aspect. And we do the same also when it comes to user testing, the results of the testing, the results of the research. Me as the head of interaction design, I see it from my side as something that is very important to communicate, let's say, to communicate our side of the story, our approach towards a user-centric design, also to the developers, so that they understand why it is that we're asking them to do certain things. And we're not just annoying, we're not just picking or nitpicking on some tiny things. There is a reason behind that. And I think that if you really take developers and you show them that, they understand. And I got a lot of at the beginning when I just started, I got a lot of responses from developers saying like, oh, I did not know that was even possible, or I did not see that angle of the story, of the product, of the development. So I think it's a learning process for everyone, and that's why it's very important for us to help designers, developers, engineers work together and actually, inspire one another. So.
It is indeed great. I see lots of value in that. Guillaume, it's interesting if you have any other perspectives on how maybe engineering can involve designers into their processes to create this better understanding or stronger collaboration. Do you have
I think Guillermo can answer that, as
yes.
he's the head of DevOps. Guillermo and I work together on many projects. But I think he can maybe share his experience with, let's say, working with my designers on his projects, and then I think that would be a more interesting take.
Yeah.
So, well, from my side, when we are going to build a solution, a product, or call it whatever, we have to collaborate all together in the same direction. When we have different departments, different silos, like could be designers and then developers, and each of them act a little bit independently, we are creating two different visions. So they are probably not really aligned. On one side, we have the designers going in, we want to create something very cool, something very nice, something quite usable. And then we have the engineers saying like, yeah, well, we just want to play with the code and do fancy stuff, but just the code. So at the end, what we saw is copying the style from Silicon Valley companies. We have to go in the same directions, both together. So of course, everyone heard about the cross-functional teams. We suggest something similar to cross-functional teams, but not really as cross-functional teams. I don't think everyone in a team should do everything, because mastering all the skills in a team, it's impossible. If we think about a team with design, with development, with cloud engineering, with security, all the areas within a team, having everyone doing everything won't happen. But creating an awareness, a common awareness, that's good. That's very good. So that way I understand the other person's point of view on what they are asking for, and I might even sometimes get some interest and help out a little bit here and there. So what we believe is in creating teams that they are, let's say, a superheroes team. Each one has their own super skill or super experience, but we work together. We are hand by hand. And the designer will take lead most on the designing domain and research domain, together with the other guys of the team. So everyone is involved in the product. Everyone has the same goal. That's the most important thing. We have to collaborate, and collaborate is not only talking or sending emails between one department and the other. It is really being hand by hand and making things together. As an example, in some of the teams, we even put people from marketing, for instance. That person was super happy when she joined the team. Like, yeah, she's not a designer, she's not a developer, she was not a tester, but she was part of the team, giving her vision, her inputs all the time, even learning a couple of things from development. And she was like, hey guys, this is cool. I really feel part of the team. They got ownership, increased motivation, and at the end they are creating all together their own baby. Think about an orchestra. If different music players are playing their own music separately without doing it aligned, it will sound something terrible. Even if all of them, they play instrument great. If they don't align, we are not going to get a good result.
That's a great example. I love that, Guillermo. Thanks so much. I would like to turn this conversation into a part that probably is worrying a lot of the people, at least myself for sure. I would be interested. When we are talking about, like improving some of the systems in the company or building a design system, for example, in order to help build up certain consistency or processes, of course, it wouldn't be possible to do that without getting a buy-in from the management or from the leadership level. Haley, in your talk, you actually mentioned how you worked on the partnership program and involving designers to share that knowledge between themselves to kind of like co-design the system and the new components, the new patterns there. How did you manage to get the buy-in from the leadership?
That's a great question. I think, one thing that's really important is looking over and above design ops and understanding the organizational structure of a company. And so again, not just focusing on design, but asking how can you bake the way that like design systems work into just like everyday business, how a company runs and how it's measured. So one thing that really helps get buy-in is making sure that people within your organization are not just measured by whether or not they're contributing and shipping to product, but also that they are free to contribute to the systems that are within an organization, because usually companies of a certain size have more than one design system. And so what we try to do is really do things like baking design systems into our career frameworks, making sure that people are recognized for different types of work within a company. And then that means that it's not just the job of any one team, but it's actually the job of everyone to in some way, again, contribute components back to the system, write new guidelines, build context around the surface areas that they're working on to reduce those silos. So that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Cool. That sounds actually pretty interesting. Patricia, you have gone through a big process there at Brainly, and it seemed like you have opened up also specific roles, like you said, UI engineer or something similar. How did you make sure that the business understand why do you need such people on the team?
Oh, it was a struggle. Like it was very long struggle, and we are like step by step coming to the goal to have like full stuff in the core team. But when it comes to contributors to design system, we are doing something similar as Haley said. So all people from product teams are contributing to the design system, so it's not centralized and it's baked into the process, in fact. And I think that the key factor that management bought this was the fact that when we started this process, and it was like one person that was working here and here with design system and inside of product team, did so amazing work that they could see the value. So I think like showing the results, that's the only way. But and often it's about making an effort even after hours, because when we started design system, it wasn't on an agenda. It had no priority. So we are working in a small team of 3 people, often after hours, like almost every day, because we believed that this is a project that will make an impact, and it did. And after like the company saw that, when we went public with our guidelines and also gave some assets to the whole company. That was like a game changer for us. And then it was really maybe not easy, but easier to move forward with this project.
Right, right. So it sounds like you needed to showcase, to work hard first, to kind of like showcase the result, and then it seems like you gained quite some belief and buy-in from the management layer.
Yeah, I think it's classic.
Cool.
When I've heard talks about design systems, I think it's like a usual path.
Probably, yeah, for sure. We have an interesting question from the crowd, from, I hope I pronounced the name right, Valadis. And the question is, can you advise on any good books or articles around outcome-oriented development? And are OKRs a way to actually do outcome-oriented development or not? Guillaume, probably that's a question to you, or anybody who wants to step in.
There are a couple of books that they are very interesting. The ones from Jin Kim. I don't recall all of the titles and so on, but from IT Revolution, that's the editorial, and Jin Kim is the author. He's kind of the let's say the father of DevOps. Think about DevOps, the philosophy of really trying to work in an efficient manner and customer-centric oriented. He has a couple of points there that they are very interesting. Also, one book from Mirko Hering as well, the Modern Enterprise Landscape, something like that is called. I don't remember exactly. Also, very interesting book. And OKRs, of course, they are the hip of the year or last year. I think they work quite well. They are not new. They are from the 60s or 70s. Some guys, they were creating them as in companies, and IBM, for instance, they work fine. I mean, at the end, you want to get a goal and you want to find a way on how to reach the goal. So it's a way of working where you are going towards an end, and you find the ways of how to make it possible instead of micromanagement or traditional style. I like OKRs. I'm using that right now for our capability in Accenture, and I think it's somehow increasing the creativeness of the people and also the motivation, which I think is quite important.
Yeah, definitely a good technique. We're also following that at GitLab really, really successfully. So definitely thanks for those advices. I actually have another question. We have talked about the importance of, building out the systems, maybe creating some processes in order to scale the design. But I'm curious, when is it a good time for organization to put powers into that, or put effort or money, for example, building a design system or getting a certain process around the design? Anybody wants to take that question? Patricia, you're smiling.
I think it comes with the scale, or maybe in our case, we were a very small team just two years ago. We were very small. Now we are small, but we know that we are going to be big and we are preparing for scaling. So on one hand, we know that there will be more designers. So design system has place in our company. And on the other hand, we have like a quite big product, because we are the biggest online learning community in the world. So we have like 250 million of users and counting. So this is like a big product, small team, and this team will be bigger. So I think that for us it's no brainer to scale. But maybe if you have like a startup and you don't know what's gonna happen, maybe it doesn't make sense to focus on a design system and processes and stuff like that. So that's my take.
Thanks for that. Haley, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I would say that some indicators that, operationalizing is an important factor to things. To Patricia's point, like one of them would be growth. But another thing that I would bring up is just, even just a very small team needs a way to work together. If you think about, cultures where people are in, you know, like a even startup or a small company or a nonprofit, another type of organization I think of, there's still you know, people come and go, right? And so the minute that someone leaves and someone new comes in, there can be a sort of loss of institutional knowledge from that last person. So making sure that people are, you know, documenting their thinking and their ways of working, and making sure that people understand how to work together when they're onboarding and coming into a new organization, or their own personal development around career growth. I don't know of anyone who wants to come to a company and not understand the steps to, you know, career development. And so I think, you know, just those basic fundamentals are sort of just, I would say, are good about like good for running good business. Whether if you do it at the smallest size, you're just doing something that maybe doesn't scale yet. And then as you grow, you've prototyped it several times within that small group to keep, you know, to keep going. So, so yeah, I think that's just something to keep in mind, is that, I mean, to your point, I've often been asked you know, can a really small company have a design system? And my point of view would be that maybe, even to Patricia's point, if it's not the first thing that you invest in, the minute that someone else starts working on a design that isn't one single designer is an opportunity to start documenting the rationale and the thinking behind the work.
For sure. It's a great point. I think we could look into that as a preparation for the scale, just like as you said, the preparation for the orchestration and optimization of the processes. This is at the end what kind of like design ops is, as we aligned in the beginning, and also, yeah, to preparing to scale the design and its value in the org. Thanks a lot for all of your answers. Thanks for the great questions from the crowd. And I really encourage you to ask the rest of the questions in the Slack, or ping directly to the speakers, to the panelists. Watch the great talks from Miriam, Haley, Guillermo, and Patricia. There is lots of useful content. And John, back to you.